As he stormed out of the place, he didn't bother to look back. He had just broken his own promise not to expose himself just like that. He had made the mistake and he knew everything was just ruined. He got into his car and relaxing against his seat, he shut his eyes. Why did he even come out like that? He behaved like a total jerk. And to worsen the whole thing, he had expressed something he was still battling with. He had lost it. He just couldn't take it, and now he had no idea how things could possibly work out between them. With what he just said, he needed to go somewhere to be alone. He started the car and turned on the headlamps. As he was about to move, he saw a figure in front of him, and he quickly hit the brake. He almost killed someone. Then he realized it was Rosa. He cursed under his breath and opened the car door. "What is wrong with you, Rosa? I could have killed you," he shouted at her, and quickly stepped out of the car and hurried towards her. "Are you okay, Rosa?" he asked, examining her to see if she was hit, but she was only staring at him and smiling. "What are you doing smiling like that? Don't you know I could have killed you? You wouldn't even if you tried," she replied. "Besides, you left in such a hurry and I had to make things right." "No, Rosa, you don't need to. I will be all right. I have to, else I won't be fine. You said you are in love with me." "It doesn't matter," he replied, wondering what she had to say. "Too bad," she said, walking closer to him, "because I was going to ask you why it took you so long to tell me that." He was getting confused. "What are you doing, Rosa?" "I am expressing myself to you as well. I love you, Francis. Even before you left for Haiti, ever since I started working for you, even before I actually met you or before we even spoke, I thought you would never come back again, so I covered it up. And then you came back and we got closer, and I just couldn't contain it any longer. You wanted a fake relationship, so I hooked up with Luke so I wouldn't get hurt. Anytime I remembered everything is just for show. Before she could finish, he gathered her in his arms and kissed her passionately. When his lips finally touched hers, everything in her just let go. Their lips moved in synchronization like they were pieces of a missing puzzle. His hand held her cheek warmly but firmly to make sure she wasn't going anywhere. All the sparks she wanted to feel were there. Actually, electric shock running through her body. If she had been doing wrong things all her life, this felt perfectly right. As she put her arms around him and pressed closer to him, they had to pull away for breath. They stood panting and smiling when they noticed they had company. "I told you, Angela. Now pay up," Romeo said as he held a hand to Angela, who counted some notes and handed to him excitedly. "You two had a bet this would happen?" Francis asked. "Yes, we did," replied Angela excitedly. "And we also had a bet that if you two hook up tonight, I and Angela get back together as well," replied Romeo as he pulled Angela towards him and kissed her while the other two clapped. "You are crazy, you know that, Rosa," Francis whispered in her ear as she leaned against him. "Do you know what you are getting into? With Debbie and Luke." "I do. I will end things with Luke. I am being unfair to him." He pulled her closer. He was just too happy right now. Being in love with someone that loved him back was a great feeling. "I love you, Rosa. I love you, Francis." Debbie got to her mother's house at around some minutes past 8 in the night. Now that she had all the proof she needed, all she needed to do right now was deal with Rosa in a way she would never expect. Perry, one of the maids, had kept an eye on Francis since he got back and Rosa wasn't around. Debbie knew he would want to find her if he truly loved her like she suspected. Perry had just called her some minutes ago to confirm that she had found them kissing at the Diner Royal. Rosa had lied to her. She turned off the ignition key and stepped out of the car. Been long since she came here, almost a year now. She found another car parked in the garage outside her mother's Jeep. "She has a visitor," Debbie walked to the front door. She deliberated on whether to ring the doorbell or not for a while, but then she just opened the door and walked in. The house was clean and dustless, and the delicious aroma of plantain and fried egg filled the atmosphere. She could hear the sound of cutlery as they beat around the plates, conveying from the dining. Been a while she came here. She glanced around the house and raised an eyebrow when she realized none of her pictures was in places they used to be. Her mother had packed them all away. There was a photo on the wall. Her mother was putting an arm around a man in his late 60s, whom she recognized straight away. Honorable Miller, her mother's long crush. They used to talk about the man before the quarrel between them. He traveled to India sometimes back, and her mother would spend all day video chatting with him. The man lost his family in a plane crash and was having a difficult time connecting. Well, guess they were connected now, she said to herself. What do you want here? She turned around and found her mother looking radiant. Oh, mother, look at you. Someone would think you just turned 30. Her mother made no reply but spoke again sternly. You have no business here, Debbie. I suggest you leave before I call the police. She pretended to be surprised. Oh, come on, mother. That is not a way to welcome back a prodigal daughter. She moved closer to her. I need your help, ma. So much has happened to me, and I know you warned me, but now I want to do what is right, and I know you will help me because you are my mother. I am no mother to a slut and a gold digger. Mother, don't let us get to that stage yet. You will like what I am here for. It has always been your wish. I want you to help me get Francis back. Mother stared at her as if she was mad. You have not learned any lesson, have you? I know you will end up like this. You should have seen my face when I saw Francis was your stepson. She chuckled. I thought it was a joke. I celebrated every night. Now you want to get him back because you realize you would soon become a widow when you married an old man. Rosa has gotten her claws around him, and I want him now. You are going to help me, she requested. Her mother burst into laughter. Your maid. You are so done for, Debbie. I guess she is a lot smarter than you are. Look, Debbie, I assured you that you would not get a dime from that family. See me, I have a man now. I am happy and comfortable, and we are growing old together. I do not worry about any child because I have none. So go out of my house and never come back again. You have no place here. I disowned you a long time ago. She thought about a reply she could give her mother that could hurt her just as she had hurt her with her statement about a perfect life. She really hated her mother, and that she was right just made her hate her more. You had a daughter. The both looked at the person who had interrupted their conversation. Honorable Miller was standing at the passageway. Seemed he had been listening to their conversation. Her mother looked shocked and quickly went to him. Darling, it's not what you think. But I heard what you just said now, the man retorted. Honorable Miller, yes, you heard right. She disowned me, and now that I am back, she is chasing me away again, Debbie replied. Honey, what is going on? The man asked, but her mother faked a smile. No need to worry, honey. Let's just go inside. Our guest is just leaving. Honorable Miller, I know how much you value family. I know you lost yours, but this woman is not the best for you. She left my father when he had nothing, and now she's disowning me because I came to look for her. She's really a wicked and selfish woman. I don't think you should waste your time with her. Her mother gasped at what she just said. You stupid liar. Keep quiet right now. She faced the honorable, who was surprised and confused. She's lying, honey. Please don't listen to her. You told me you had no daughter, and that your husband and daughter died in a car accident, and I just heard everything you were saying some minutes ago, and now you are saying I shouldn't listen to her. You know what, Jessica? We are done. Lose my number. You are not whom I thought you were. Her mother cried and pleaded, but the man left anyways. Some minutes later, they could hear his car zoomed away. Debbie seemed satisfied as she watched her mother crying on the floor. "I swear to God, Debbie, you will pay for this. I will so ruin you. No man in this world will desire you. You took everything from me, my last chance of happiness. I will expose you tomorrow. The world will know who you are truly." She paid languid attention to her mother's threats. "Stop it, mother. We both lost, okay? Well, I haven't lost yet though. I just think if I don't get what I want, why you should get to gloat? You know how much I hate that." Her mother stood up frantically and went to the table, picked her phone and played the last conversation she had with Debbie before now, where she swore she would step on anybody to get what she wants, and her mother will never see her again. Nothing was missed out of the conversation. Everything was recorded by her mother. Debbie stiffened as the realization dawned on her. This was enough to bring her down. "You will not use that, mother," she shouted in a trembling voice. "You will hear your voice on every radio station, every TV station from tomorrow. You will be chased out of that mansion you so desire like a dog. No one will want you. Your career will be ruined, just as you ruined my happiness." Debbie panicked. This wasn't going to happen. She had to do something fast. "I swear if that thing gets out, mother, you can do nothing to me anymore, child." "It is my turn now," her mother replied calmly. Debbie walked out of the house. She could hear her mother's laughter as she stepped out of the house. This was not what she had expected. It wasn't easy, but Rosa did it. She told Luke everything and it really relieved her. Of course he was hurt and felt used, but he was grateful it got settled out before it got more complicated. He wasn't surprised that she was writing about him. He later confessed about having gone through her script when she was sleeping the other night. She had mistakenly used Francis in the place of Henry. It didn't take him time to figure it all out. He also admitted that he wanted to ask her to stop writing the storyline, but he had no right to do that. At least not anymore. He was really a gentleman. He took it lightly and he even said they could be friends. She was so sorry he wasn't the one. Speaking of the one, where did he put his phone? She had been calling Francis since he dropped her at Luke's house to pack her things. Francis had received a call from John concerning his father. She couldn't hear what actually happened, but the way Francis' expression has changed, she knew it was something serious. He had to go. He promised to come pick her and her luggage once he settled things with Luke that night, no matter how late it is. She only needed to call. Now she was calling for the 30th time and the phone just kept on ringing. She sighed as a lightning split the sky. "Please don't let it rain," she prayed. She hated being caught in the rain, especially when she was trying to get to somewhere. She was getting impatient. There was no way she would go back to Luke's house, no matter how a perfect gentleman he had been. It would be so awkward, considering they had spent the night together in the same bed the previous night. Now, would she ask for a separate room? Hell no, too awkward. As she wanted to dial his number again, a call came in and she picked before it rang twice. "Hello, Francis." "Rosa." Her stomach turned as she heard Debbie's voice. She hadn't expected her call, and that wasn't even her number she was calling with. "Debbie, what a surprise. I wasn't expecting your call." Suddenly, Debbie began to sob on the phone. "I need your help, Rosa. I am so sorry for everything I did. It was so selfish and I miss you. I really need you. You are the only sister I have and the only one that I trust." Rosa was surprised and worried at the same time. "Are you okay, Debbie?" "No, Rosa," she sobbed. "My mother is very sick and I cannot go see her right now because Frank just collapsed and I have to be at the hospital. Please, I need someone to go see her." "Okay, wait a minute. Didn't her mother disown her or didn't she disown her mother?" "But Debbie, I thought you both are not talking." "I know, but she called me now and said she was dying." "Rosa, please, you still know how to get there. You can spend the night there. I will come in the morning. Promise me, please. I don't know what to do. I need you," she cried. "Okay, I promise. I also need a place to stay tonight. I will go and I will call you once I get there." "Thank you, I will be calling you." That was weird, so weird. Why did she feel that something was out of place? Frances wasn't speaking, and now Debbie called that her mother was dying. She dragged her bag with her to get a cab. She got into a cab as it began to rain. On getting there, the rain downpour had already reduced, but the thunder, she groaned. She scurried to the front door. She hit the doorbell and got no response, which she knew could be as a result of the noise of the rain. So she just opened the door and walked in, pulling her soaked bag with her. This house was quiet and everything seemed to be in place as she had remembered. "Mrs. Patterson, good evening, ma. Is Rosa?" The silence that replied her sent shudders down her spine. She kept sensing danger, but what could possibly hurt her here? Curious, she decided to call Debbie, but the operator said switched off. Awesome! She walked up the stairs to her bedroom and knocked twice. "Mrs. Patterson," no response. She opened the door. The bed was carefully laid and it seemed as if it hasn't been slept on. Her bed lamp was not on except for the light bulb from the bulb. Where could she be? Rosa had water dripping in the bathroom and she walked closer. She stopped, shocked and gasped at what she saw. Lying lifeless on a bathrobe was Mrs. Patterson. "So you're saying he may not likely make it, Francis?" He didn't reply. He was just so exhausted internally. Having gotten home and meeting his father unconscious was the worst kind of pain. He had called Angela immediately and they had all met at his former place of work. Nicola's hospital is under construction still. Even Romeo had come with him. He had spent the entire night at his father's side, holding his hand as he slept peacefully. Romeo and Angela had stayed throughout the night with them. He had missed several of Rosa's calls. He had forgotten he was supposed to pick her. He had even left his phone at home before Steve brought it that morning, and he tried her number so many times it was not reachable. He later concluded she must have spent the night at Luke's house. "What about his wife?" Francis asked. "That girl," John hissed. "She's being dramatic on the TV, crying and talking to the press for the nation to pray for her husband." He took the remote by the bedside and pressed a button. The TV came on, and there was Debbie adorned in ornaments and crying while addressing the press. Both Angela and Romeo hissed at the same time. "I always hated that girl," said Angela. "I didn't want this to get to the press, John," Frank said bitterly. "What kind of demon is this lady?" John shook his head. "You should know since you were the one that brought her into this house, John," Francis snapped. "An action I regret every day," John replied soberly. Back to the TV. "Ma, how close were you with your mother?" one of the pressmen asked. "What do you mean?" "We got a message of murder some minutes ago at number 33 Airport Road, and the information I got is that you grew up in that house with your mother." Debbie looked confused. "What are you trying to say?" "I am saying the body found belonged to one Jessica Patterson." "Was she your mother?" "Wait, hold on." She was breathing fast. "Did you say my mother was killed?" "Yes, madam, and the culprit was captured, a Miss Rosalina who used to work for you." Everyone in the room gasped upon hearing Rosa, and just at that time, Debbie screamed and fainted. There was panic on the TV, and John pressed a button putting it off. No one spoke, all exchanging glances, trying to digest what they just heard. "What is all this? Rosa killed Debbie's mother. It must be a setup," Angela said angrily. "John, get me the name of the police station and send it to me now. Romeo, come with me. Angela, you stay," Frank ordered as he grabbed his car key and walked hurriedly out of the room with Romeo. "Debbie just called me and told me about her mother. I went because I couldn't get in with you. I found her already dead and I was so shocked. I couldn't move and I couldn't think. Before I could do anything, the police were there." Francis sighed, shutting his eyes. He couldn't bear to see her like this, in handcuffs and looking so haggard from crying too much. They were in the CPO's office. She was crying as she recounted how it happened. "But sir, Tell us what to expect in this case, Romeo said to the CPO. She was found at the scene of the murder, the officer replied. Hold on, officer, Francis stated. How did you know about this? A neighbor called us to report struggle in a house close by, and that it seemed serious. Did you get the identification of the neighbor? She hung up before we could. She. Both Romeo and Francis chorused and exchanged glances while the officer nodded. Romeo shook his head. Man, this is major. Francis looked at Rosa, who kept shedding tears. His heart was heavy and he pitied her. Just then the door opened and Debbie walked in. Her face was swollen. The officer stood up for her while the men remained seated. You are welcome, madam. So sorry for your loss. Debbie made no reply but walked up to Rosa and looked at her expressionless. I love you. I clothed you, gave you a job, treated you like a sister, and all you did was to kill my mother. You did this to me, Debbie. You set me up and you know it, Rosa cried. Set you up? You did this to yourself, Rosa. All I did was love you. You left the house and went to take on my mother. Why? What did I do to you? Rosa gasped. You sacked me, Debbie. You sent me away. I left and you called me about your mother because I was stupid and I thought you were actually a good person. I fell for it. Officers, check her phone. I sacked you. When? Where? Who was there? You did this because of Francis, right? But guess what? He loves me, Rosa continued proudly, and I love him, and no amount of your plans will ever change that. You are a loser, Debbie. Nobody would love you. You killed your own mother, sent away your best friend, and now you are setting me up. You will rot in hell, Debbie. Oh my God, officers, she wants to kill me too. Debbie screamed and started sobbing. She didn't say anything about killing you, madam. All right, take the lady, officers. Just as she was being taken away, she quickly pushed one of the officers away and ran into Francis, who seemed shocked but hugged her tightly as she said, I didn't do it, Francis. Don't let her win. Come with my script the next time and take my bag with you. Then she kissed Francis deeply but roughly while the officers pulled her away. As she walked, she gave Debbie a triumphant look before being taken away. Officers, that lady is dangerous. You must do everything to keep her away from me. She must go to jail, Debbie said firmly to the CPO. I understand, ma, but we need to do a proper investigation, said the officer. But Debbie was angry and shouted, what further investigation when she was found there? We practice fair justice here so as not to send the wrong person to jail. That is the protocol. If she is guilty, be rest assured that she will pay for it, the officer said emphatically. Debbie rolled her eyes and walked out of the room. The officer sighed. This seems even more complicated than I thought. I will advise you, Mr. Francis, to get a lawyer. That lady that just left now seems very dangerous. I won't be surprised if this whole thing is a setup. But you need to prove it. She is on a journey of vendetta for the suspect. I will fear her if I were you. Thank you, officer, Francis replied. Please, where is the bag she came with? Come with me, please. Everything should work out well. Debbie took out her mother's phone, switched it on, and went through the applications. When she got to recorded videos, she smiled and pressed a button. Having had what she wanted, she pressed the delete button and put the phone off again. She walked to her dressing table and was massaging her neck while she stared at herself in the mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Will they ever find out I did it? She hoped not. Only if Francis would stop defending that girl. She knew there was no way she could get Francis back now, not with the way he looked at her with so much hatred. Even though she hadn't gotten the courage to even speak to him, she needed to. Even if she may never have him, that fool will never have him either. She will never take her future from her. She has worked too hard for this, and now some stupid low-level girl will just mess it up for her. No, she would die in jail. She had made sure she was granted a bail, and she would make sure she dies in jail too. She had just come back from hospital. Her husband hadn't even opened his eyes yet, and no one was with him. Of course, she had played the part of a good, dutiful, and sad wife who wished the best for her husband, but it was best if he just died. She had always wondered who his lawyer was, but she had no idea. If she could just get in touch with the lawyer and see for herself what was written in the will. She had asked so many times, even during one of their lame sex. He just didn't say anything. Asking John was a no for her as well. What if John was right? What if there was nothing for her if this man dies? Well, just like she had said, if she could not have Francis, no one would. She stood up and walked to Francis' room. She opened the door without knocking, and he spun, giving her a deadly glare. "What do you want?" he groaned. He looked really tired and even more handsome. She closed the door and leaned against it, looking at him while he stared at her suspiciously. "Leave my room this minute," he ordered calmly. "She is not worth it, Francis," she replied. His expression showed surprise, and then he laughed. "And you are worth it," he quinted. "You disgust me, Debbie. Somebody like you must not be on this earth. You are a maggot and I hate you with every bit of me." Debbie smiled. She could see he meant every word, but maybe it was time to speed things up. "She doesn't love you, Francis. I brought her so she could spy on you, so you could love her and tell her whatever you were planning against me. All the love you think she has was fake. I made her do it. Did she tell you that?" She waited for a reaction but got none. He only glared at her. "And so, you think I was stupid enough not to know that you have planned that?" Guess what? I knew, even if she hadn't told me. She doesn't need to, because it doesn't matter anymore. She loves me and I love her, and we are both faithful to each other. So don't think you can use this to come between us. You are going down, Debbie, so way down. Now, if you are true, would you leave my room, you pathetic loser? Debbie flinched at his words. How could he still trust Rosa after all this? How could he still love her? He had lied to her for God's sake. And in case you are wondering if after knowing this, I still love her, and it's because she gave up her heart for me, something you were incapable of doing. I forgive her because she deserves it. Now leave. She sighed and walked out of the room. That night in the hospital, Francis held his father's hand as he laughed weakly. After he and John had just filled him on everything that happened, he was still weak and could die at any time. "That lady is such a big bitch, isn't she, John?" John nodded where he sat. "Why in God's name did you bring her to my house?" "Sorry, boss. I thought you could need someone like that with the little time you have. Don't ever do that again." John nodded soberly. "So you said Rosa wasn't granted a bail?" Francis nodded. "That's cold." Frank continued. "Once you win this case, don't let that bitch take my stuff away. She must live with nothing. She won't have the chance, since she will be going to jail from there," John replied. "We need a good lawyer," Francis stated, and the other men exchanged glances. "A good lawyer?" his father asked. "You already have a good lawyer here, don't you know?" Francis was confused. "John is my private lawyer, and he has saved me from so much since I can barely remember. He has my will and everything, and I trust him with my life, if not for Debbie that almost ruined that. But trust me, he will win the case for you." Francis gasped. "John, you are a lawyer. How many jobs do you do?" he asked jokingly. "That, my dear, is something I will not tell you," John replied with a chuckle. "Now, how about you fill me up on everything about your ex/stepmother?" He looked at Frank, who laughed weakly to what had just been said. "Man, that is so fucked up," said Frank. "You don't need to say," chuckled John, as he brought out a pen and paper. "Now tell me everything." "My lord, I am lawyer John Sam for the accused," John announced proudly as he winked at Rosa. "I am lawyer Charles for the plaintiff," the other lawyer stated as he stood up and sat. "Can the accused come out?" the judge asked, and Rosa stood up, now in a different clothes that Angela had brought for her. She went to where she was supposed to sit for questioning. She glanced around as she saw Angela, Francis, and Romeo beside Luke. Luke, he smiled as their eyes met, and then he signaled to her to relax. Perry and Ella, the two evil maids who had been assisting Debbie in carrying out her evil plans, were seated beside Debbie, who was wearing black. Frank Nicholas had died the previous night, as Francis had told her that morning. She could also see some other people from the mansion that had come to support. Debbie had just finished her own questioning, out of which she had lied about not calling her or sacking her. "Can you tell the court how it all happened, Miss Rosa?" John asked as Rosa narrated how she was called that night by Debbie and how it had happened. "Were you and Miss Debbie on good terms before then?" "No," she answered. "So how was it possible that she called you when you were not on good terms?" Rosa shrugged. "I was surprised. How close were you two before? Like sisters? What caused the little rift between you two?" "I was given the award she so much wanted, and I also got the man she abandoned some times back." There was a noise from the court until the judge shouted, "Order!" "My lord," John continued, "I don't want to keep wasting our time because a dear friend and a boss just died, and I still need to mourn. We heard all that happened from both sides. We don't need to dig into their past or waste further time. So let me just bring in my testifiers. We are dealing with murder here, and we need to go straight to the point. Through the testifiers, we will know who is lying and we will see the truth. Bring your first witness. The accused can go back to her seat," the judge ordered. Rosa went back to her seat, while John signaled to Francis, who was now close to the entrance. As Debbie sighted the man that came in with Francis, she gasped. After the man has taken the oath, "Please tell the court your name and how you are related to this," John asked. "I am Honorable Miller, and I was in a relationship with the deceased. So can you tell us where you were on the day and in the night of the murder?" "Earlier that day, I was at Jessica's place. We were eating when she said someone was in the living room. She left her food and didn't come back for a while, and as I went to see what was happening, I began to hear strange noises, as if in a quarrel. Can you please tell the court some things you heard?" "Yes, I heard Jessica saying she disowned her daughter some times ago, and they were exchanging words." "But you heard the word daughter, meaning she was addressing a daughter she had disowned?" "Yes," replied Miller. "Thank you, go ahead." "I was hurt because she didn't tell me she had a daughter, and I had craved for family since I lost mine. So I left angrily and said it was over." "Okay, but will you recognize the daughter if you see her?" "Yes, she is sitting there," said Miller, and pointed to Debbie. "Please continue." "So later I went to somewhere to cool my head because I really loved Jessica, and I knew she must have a reason for not telling me. So as I was contemplating on going back that night, I got a video message from her. You see, we usually video chatted a lot." He sounded a little embarrassed. "What was in the content, please?" She was taking her bath and she was recording it live. Another noise started and the order from the judge silenced everything. Luke and Francis came out with a transparent bag containing a phone, which was handed to John. They plugged the speaker to the flat screen in the courtroom where everyone could see. "My lord, this is Honorable Miller's phone," John announced as he brought out the phone, and Luke gave him a cord, which he attached to the phone. Francis put on the screen and John scrolled on the phone, making the things in the phone appear on the TV screen. Jessica was taking her bath. It was obvious she was naked, and some people in the court had to cover their eyes. "Baby, I love you. Please don't leave me. Come back to me." Just then, something shattered on the floor, which got her distracted. She had probably thought she had paused the video. She wrapped herself with a bathrobe and stepped out of the bath. The view rotated with the way she handled the phone. "Debbie, what are you doing? Why did you come back? I want that phone, mother. You cannot have it. Mother, give me that phone. Leave me alone and get out, you bastard." There was a little struggle. "You are going to kill me, you this child. Stop it, stop it." And then they heard what seemed like a push, and the older woman screamed, and there was a thud, and then silence. Oh my God, what did I do? The scene came to end as everyone gasped. "So what did you do next, Honorable?" I ended the chat immediately. I was already far from her house, and it was raining and there was traffic. By the time I got back to her house, I saw policemen swarming out of the house holding that lady who wasn't even there before I left. "Thank you, Honorable. You can please go back to your seat." John faced the judge. "My lord, this was because of a phone which we tried to look for. I guess Miss Debbie had taken it with her. But aren't you a little bit curious as to what could be so important in the phone?" Let me call my second witness. Someone stood up from the far end corner of the courtroom. White hat, big glasses, all white jumpsuit, and a steel-toe shoe. As she walked to the front and got to where Debbie sat, she turned and removed her sunshade. "You missed me, bitch." Rosa wondered who it was until she sat down at the front, removed her sunshade while taking the oath. "I, Vera Smith, promise to say nothing but the truth." "Can you tell us who you are?" John asked. "I am Vera Smith. I used to be Debbie's best friend. She stole my man." "Okay, thank you, Miss Vera. Please, how are you related to this entire murder scene?" "First, Your Honor, Debbie is a big son of a bitch who would do anything to get what she wants. Hell, she killed her own mother, all because of her stupid ambition. You see, when she stole my man, well, a man that wasn't really mine to begin with. Thank God she did, though. I would make a terrible widow. I told her mother. I didn't hear from her mom for a while until she gave me a call after so many months and told me everything that has happened and how she disowned her and all. Later, she gave me a call few days back and sent a recorded video to me. She said Debbie had calmed that day and she was afraid she may come and do something stupid. So she sent it to me in case anything happens to her phone. May I have the phone?" "Sure. There is nothing I would love more," replied Vera as she handed him her phone, and he did same thing he had done earlier, just that this time they could only see the mirror where the phone was facing when it had dropped. It was the same with the one Debbie's mother had played for her. There was another noise in the court. "Thank you, Vera. You can go." "Oh, it was a pleasure," Vera said as she stood up, collected her phone and walked back to where Debbie sat, cowering and crying. "I told you, bitch. You thought I was gone forever. I am glad to be the one that drove the last nail to your coffin. Rot in hell." "My lord, this is a result of the autopsy that was carried out on the deceased. It shows that she was pushed and suffered a great fall." John emphasized on the last statement as he presented a parcel to the judge and then walked back to his seat, only for Rosa to throw herself at him and hugged him. "So with these new evidences, this is my judgment. Debbie, you are guilty of murder and I am sentencing you to life imprisonment. Perry and Ella, 6 months imprisonment each for bearing false witnesses. Rosa, you are free to go. I rise." "Careful, Frank. If you break that medal, Mommy would spank you," shouted Francis to his 2-year-old boy who was running around with one of the medals his wife had been awarded 2 years back as bestseller for her novel. "What a woman wants. Frank Nicholas Jr., you should listen to your daddy. Mommy won't be nice if you break that thing," said a pregnant Rosa, coming out of the kitchen. Francis laughed and lifted Frank from the floor onto his lap. As he laughed excitedly, Rosa sat beside her family while her husband put the other arm around her. John came in, handling some documents. "Hello, love bears. Oh, come on, Frank, and give Uncle John a hug." The little boy jumped from his father's laps and ran to hug his uncle, who lifted him on his shoulder. "Daddy, Daddy, see, I am taller than all of you," the boy sang excitedly. "Oh, sure you are," replied John with a laugh. "So did you speak to them, John?" Rosa asked. Yes, they won the 5th edition and I got news from Fox Scream that they would like to turn it into a movie. So we already made all the arrangements and finalized about the deal. We'll tell you all about that later. The channel's TV also want to have an interview with the two of you since the book is a true life story. And you know, I have laws I need to discuss. Do you mind if we go to your office? Wow, honey, that's fantastic. I am so proud of you, Frank said to his wife as he kissed her. Thanks, love, Rosa replied and stood up. Why don't we go to my office and discuss it, John? All right, said John, as he handed Frank back to his father and followed pregnant Rosa to a room that had once belonged to the former Mrs. Nicholas, which was now converted into Rosa's personal office. Francis smiled at his son. He was happy. He was probably the happiest man on earth. Rosa had won several awards for the book which she had written in a way everything happened in his life. It was his true life story. They had gotten married few months after the court saga. He had no reason to wait for anything. His hospital was ready now. His boy had come 9 months after the wedding. John still worked for them. He was a very crucial part of their family. Angela and Romeo were fine too. They would get married soon. Everything was good. Life was beautiful. Thank you so much guys for watching. I apologize for posting this final episode late due to some resources and gadgets we lack. Please, the only thing I need from you is your support by liking, sharing, subscribing and leaving a comment to help the channel grow. Also, a big thank you to Toby Loba for this wonderful story. Please also turn on the notification bell for the next mind-blowing story coming up. Subscribe, please. Subscribe, like, share and leave a comment, please.